Hello everyone, as I promised, I'm going to show you how to install Ubuntu on a virtual machine. So in order to install Ubuntu on a computer that's running Windows, you have two options. You can either use a double boot system to install Ubuntu alongside your Windows, which can be difficult sometimes, and I would say it's easier for us to install it on a virtual machine. So in order to start, we're going to download VirtualBox. VirtualBox is an open source virtual machine software that we're going to use in order to install Ubuntu. So on the left side, you see a download tab. Come here and download VirtualBox for Windows host. So we're going to install this in a second. Before that, we also need the image file of Ubuntu operating system. So we're going to search for Ubuntu and download the latest version, latest LTS version. LTS versions are long-term support editions of Ubuntu, which are better to install since they're going to receive updates in a longer period of time, over a longer period of time. But well, as we're waiting for the Ubuntu to be downloaded, we can actually start installing the VirtualBox. Default options here are they're pretty fine. We don't need to do any customization, so everything's going to be fine. Sometimes you might see a pop-up window asking you to allow for a driver to be installed on your Windows. Please choose install button there. Anyway, VirtualBox is now installed. So this is the main page of this application. This is basically the VM manager, the virtual machine manager. So here we're going to create a new virtual machine. We're going to name it Ubuntu in this case. And you can choose any name you want, but make sure that you are using the Linux and Ubuntu 64 here. One thing some of you might not have enough space on your C drive, so you can actually change this to another drive of your computer. I'm going to do it here on my D drive. I already have a VirtualBox folder here, so I'm going to remove it. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to select this folder to be my VirtualBox folder, machine folder. And if you have enough space on C drive, you can just leave it to the default option and install your create your virtual machine there. Now, next settings is about the memory size. So for Ubuntu 64, we want to choose at least 2 GB of memory. If your computer has enough memory available, for example, if you have 16 GB or more, it's a good idea to assign 4 GB of memory. If you plan to install any sort of software later that requires more memory, well, Ubuntu is downloaded, sorry for interruption. If you need more space, if you need more memory, you're free to use as much memory as you want if it's available on your computer. In this case, I have 32 GB of memory, but for me, 4 GB is enough. For you, if your laptop is limited to 8 GB of memory, you can go with 2 GB. It will be fine for our purpose in this class. Now we have to create a virtual hard disk drive. So we're going to create a VirtualBox disk image, and here we're going to make sure that the hard disk drive is dynamically allocated, since we don't want to take the entire space at the beginning of the installation. So here you can assign the maximum capacity or the limit on your hard drive. I will choose 20 gigabytes. Make sure that you actually use gigabytes here. Some students, I've seen that they they put 20 megabytes and it's not going to work there. You need at least 20 gigabytes of space here. So again, it's going to ask you where you want to have this disk image installed. Well, when you change the directory to D drive, it's going to be installed in your D drive. But if you are using an older version of VirtualBox, you might not see this option at the beginning of this window, and you can actually change it here when you're creating your hard disk drive. So now that we created our virtual machine, we're going to change some of its settings. First, we're going to open the Advanced tab and make sure that we are using bidirectional setting for the clipboard and drag and drop in files. However, most of the time this feature really doesn't work, but well, we hope that we can make it work today, so that's why I enabled them. We're going to change the number of processor cores that are allocated to our Ubuntu 2. If you have a 4-core processor or 8-core processor on your computer, it's a good idea to at least assign 2 cores to the virtual machine to run it a little bit faster. In this case, I will choose only 2 cores since we're not doing any sort of heavy task on this virtual machine. And in general, VirtualBox is not really a very fast virtual machine software, but it's free and it does the job for us. So the next settings that we need to change is the storage. Here you have an ID controller. You want to make sure that you choose disk image here to install the operating system, the Ubuntu operating system. One more time, you select the CD drive, CD disk image here, and choose a disk file, and you choose the disk image that you downloaded. So now we're done with the settings that we wanted to modify. For you, you can actually explore the other options that are available here, but we don't really want to change them at the moment. Alright, so everything is ready now, so we can actually start this virtual machine. Now when you start the virtual machine, it's going to ask you for a startup disk. So here you can choose the disk image that we assigned to the IDE controller in the settings. Make sure that this disk image is selected. Sometimes you might see other options here. Make sure that this is the one that is selected. So now we start our virtual machine. Ubuntu will start to boot. This is an in-memory version of Ubuntu that will be booted on your computer. Then you can actually go ahead and install the operating system on the virtual machine. Alright, so this is the installation process. So we start by selecting Install Ubuntu. So here we have to choose the keyboard layout, which English is fine for us at the moment. Now, on this page, you are asked to select what type of installation you want to follow. Well, for us, normal installation works fine. And if you're running on a internet connection speed that is not fast, a slow internet connection, you can actually disable this option here, download updates while installing. But I will leave it on for the moment. And also, if you're dual booting your Ubuntu, you're not installing it on a virtual machine, make sure to select this option. But we're not installing it on a we are actually installing it on a virtual machine, so we don't really need that at the moment. Alright, so everything is fine here. Now we have to select where we want this operating system to be installed. And well, the default setting here is fine since we are running on a virtual machine, but if you're installing it on as a standalone operating system, make sure that you understand what you're doing here so you won't end up deleting your files and drives. Continue. Now we're going to be we are asked what time zone we are at, so I'm selecting this location, which is Toronto. It doesn't have Montreal, unfortunately, but well, it's close enough. So now we need to select or enter our name. At the moment, I will enter my name here. It will also automatically complete the computer's name and the username. Please choose a very simple password here because you really don't want to secure your operating system on a virtual machine since you already have a password for your Windows operating system, so no one can enter your virtual machine without opening your Windows operating system first. I've chosen 123, very simple password, and I recommend that you choose a simple password too so you can remember it. And make sure to enter a password because we're going to need it later. So now the installation process starts and we'll have to wait until the installation is completed. Okay, so our Ubuntu is successfully installed. Now it's going to ask us to restart the virtual machine. Now sometimes we get a flickering screen here, so it's a problem probably with the refresh rate of the screen. So all you need to do is just press enter. Sometimes you might also get a black screen, so make sure that you make sure that the virtual machine page is focused and you press enter so you will get rid of that. Okay, now our Ubuntu is successfully installed and it's asking us to log in into our account. So I will log in into my account and welcome to Ubuntu. Alright, so let's close this login, this welcome screen. Now, the first thing that we want to do is to install the VirtualBox tools on this Ubuntu. So we start by going to the Devices tab, and insert Guest Additions CD. So this CD will be mounted on your Ubuntu and it's going to ask you to install this software. If you don't see this pop-up window here, you can open this disk image and run it from top right. It's going to ask for your password and the installation process starts. It's going to take a few seconds and that's it. So now you can press enter or return to close the window, which are the same keys actually, and you're good to go. But before we start actually installing the compiler and the editor, we are going to restart the Ubuntu to make sure that the drivers of VirtualBox are installed and loaded properly. Perfect. Now, one important note here, most virtual machine softwares has a special key which is called host key. Now, in VirtualBox, host key is write control. But if your laptop doesn't have the write control key, which is the case with some laptops with a compact keyboard setup, you have to go to Preferences, File menu Preferences, and in the Input tab, on the virtual machine tab up here, make sure that you change your host key combination to right alt if you have it, or any other key that you're not using it all the time, which is more convenient for you. For me, I'm gonna stick with right control because I have it on my keyboard. Alright, so let's eject this drive. Now, the first thing that we want to do is to enter full screen mode. Now, you can do it by your host key, which in this case is right control, and F. So you're going to enter the full screen mode and you will have more space to work. And down here you see a menu bar. So you can actually go back to the previous view by Control F again and resizing this window at your convenience, and enter the full screen mode again by right Control F. Now here you see the same options that we have on the toolbar. So they are down here. If you need to do anything, you can actually use these options. You can also enter full screen mode by going to the View tab and select the mode that you want. Okay, so we are going to start by installing some softwares. But before that, I want to point out an important note here for those of you who are working in college. So the Internet of LaSalle College has a very strong Wi-Fi installed on it, and for some reason some of the repositories of Ubuntu are blocked by college. I've tried to actually fix this for 2 years. I had no I actually didn't, I was not able to fix them. So maybe you can continue this quest to fix these problems with the firewall. But anyway, in order to fix it, we need to open the software and update tools. So in software and updates tools, here you can actually change the server that the softwares that we are going to install are downloaded from. So by default, the server is selected as a server for Canada, but you can actually change it to another server. The one that I found which works in college is from MIT University. So you have to scroll down to United States and search for mirrors.mit.edu. This is the one that works in college. And also I'm going to change it here since I don't have any problem, so I can download from any server. Okay, so we selected the server. Now when you close this page, it's going to ask you if you want to update your the local repository of softwares that you have. You can actually reload it here, or you can do it in a terminal. I'm gonna do it right away. But anyway, if this takes too long, you can actually cancel it and we will do it later in the terminal, as we actually did in class. So hopefully it's going to be finished in a few seconds. Perfect. So the first thing that we're going to do is opening a terminal application or terminal window. Well, terminal is a text-based interface which allows us to communicate with operating system. Same as graphical interface, it's basically a bridge between the user and the operating system. It allows you to enter commands and ask operating system for the operations that you need. So you can actually open terminal by going to your applications and scroll down to the second page. It's found right here. You can also press your window logo key, which will open the search menu, and you can just simply search for it. So once we open terminal, the first thing that we want to do is to add it to the favorites, so we always have access to it right away from this favorite menu bar. Now I'm going to increase the font size since I'm recording this, and it's a good idea to increase the font a bit so you can see it better. But in your case, you can stick with whatever is more comfortable for you. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do here is to run a few commands and review the commands that we actually covered together. However, I think it's a better idea to split these videos, so I'm going to stop this one right away and continue these commands in another video which will be uploaded later. Thank you very much. I have to exit this.